Moving on, in a major shift in NATO defense strategy, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that all NATO members will now have agreed to a new long-term target. This will encompass spending the equivalent of 5% of their GDP on defense within the next decade. Speaking on Fox News, Rubio said the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague could mark a historic milestone, the first time allies not only meet but exceed defence spending goals. Let's take a listen in to what the US Secretary of State had to say.
We are headed for a summit in 6 weeks in which virtually every member of NATO will be at or above 2%, but more importantly, many of them will be over 4%, and all will have agreed on a goal of reaching 5% over the next decade. It'll be the first time ever in NATO history where they have reached targets and goals that will allow NATO partners to be more than 50% of the alliance. That's a historic moment if it comes to fruition. That's what was agreed upon today by the foreign minister.
The push comes amid renewed US pressure, particularly from US President Donald Trump, who has long criticized NATO members for relying too heavily on American military support. Germany has now backed Trump's demand to more than double the current 2% benchmark. NATO chief Mark Rutte is proposing a two-tier plan, 3.5% for defense and 1.5% for broader security issues, including cybersecurity and infrastructure. With just 6 weeks to go until the summit, NATO leaders appear united in responding to growing security threats, particularly from Russia, in a bid to strengthen transatlantic unity. We move on once again. US Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio both will attend the inaugural Mass for Pope Leo XIV on May the 18th in St. Peter's Square. The Mass, marking the start of Leo's pontificate, is scheduled for 10 a.m. local time. Vance congratulated Leo on his election. In a May the 9th interview, Vance expressed his commitment to praying for the Pope, noting that the Church's mission is to spread the gospel and not engage in politics. Rubio also emphasized the spiritual role of the papacy and discussed his views on migration, criticizing open borders. Vance last visited the Vatican on April the 20th, meeting Pope Francis the day before his death. Let's turn to the Middle East now, where US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Washington is open to alternative plans to deliver aid into Gaza after the current US and Israeli-backed operation came under heavy criticism. Speaking from Turkey, Rubio acknowledges the United Nations' rejection of the plan, citing a lack of neutrality, impartiality and independence. Let's listen in to Rubio's statement.
Let me just say, I spoke to the Prime Minister today of Israel. I know the President's been in contact with him earlier this week. The President talked about this in a speech the other day, that the people of Gaza deserve a better future than what they've had under Hamas. We think that the elimination of Hamas is what achieves peace. We're troubled by the humanitarian situation there. Both the Israelis, with American backing and support, have offered a plan to deliver aid that doesn't get diverted or stolen by Hamas. I've heard criticisms of that plan. We're open to an alternative if someone has a better one, but we are for all the aid we can get without without Hamas being able to steal it from.
Meanwhile, according to the Gazan Health Ministry, at least 143 have been killed since dawn of Thursday. The deadliest strikes included a house on Al Jama Street in Jabalia camp, killing 6, and repeated bombings in Beit Lahia, where 3 were killed in the Al Sultan neighborhood and others died under artillery fire. Attacks also hit Al Fatura and Khan Yunis, adding to the toll. In the West Bank, Israeli forces killed 5 Palestinians in Tamun in a raid following the killing of an Israeli settler. Gaza's European hospital in Khan Yunis is now out of service, deepening the region's humanitarian crisis. In a related development, Israel intercepted a missile fired from Yemen on Thursday, triggering air raid sirens in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The attack was claimed by Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels, who said they targeted Tel Aviv's international airport with a hypersonic ballistic missile. It marked the third such inception in 3 days. The Houthis have repeatedly targeted Israel and Red Sea shipping since the Gaza war began in October of 2023, citing support for Palestinians. Earlier in May, a missile struck near the Ben Gurion airport, injuring several people. Israel retaliated by bombing Sana's airport and nearby power stations. Recently, Israel warned Yemenis to avoid Houthi-held ports, signaling potential further strikes. The US recently brokered a ceasefire with the Houthis following weeks of American airstrikes aimed at stopping missile threats to international shipping.